All right, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is David. I'm the co-chair of the USLAC committee, and we have the rest of the Latte committee here as well to support and help answer any questions. And in today's online learning session, we'll go over a lot of different things pertaining to the season and the upcoming preliminary competitions that we have going on. So we've got two competitions for preliminaries this season, one in Newark in mid-September and one in Dallas in mid-October. So for today's session, just to kick things off, just reminding everyone that we need to abide by the SCA's Code of Conduct. You can read more at the link below, but when we are at competitions, when we're at our host venues, please remember to treat everyone with respect and abide by the code of conduct here on the screen. Okay, so to talk about the preliminaries this season. These are designed to be kind of a warm-up. If you've never competed in this format before, it's a great opportunity to learn what the competition format is like. If you've never judged before, this is a great way to learn what judging is like. And if you want to see some beautiful latte art, this is a great place to be. So at the preliminary level and in the competition level as well, coffee and milk is provided without cost, and they will be supplied by the host. So just to briefly outline what's going to go on in this session here, I'll briefly outline what the kind of pathways through the season are, what we want to value as a competition, and then go into the competition structure, what it involves, what you'll be pouring or judging, and what it looks like across the multiple stages throughout this season. And then after that, we'll take you through what the rules and regulations state about judging and what we're looking for in terms of when we judge latte art, what are we looking at specifically? And on the technical side as well, what are we looking for in that way as well? There will be some other things about the stage and the kind of timing requirements when you're up on stage if you're competing. And then after that, we'll go through a brief group calibration and talk about potentially scoring some lattes. So that's all there. Please feel free to pop a question into the chat if you're here, and we'll do our best to answer as we go. I do want to point out that we do have a link tree. It's at the handy link on the screen here. There's a little QR code if you need as well. And we'll be posting information on this link tree throughout the season. So for instance, you can see that we already have the rules and regulations and score sheets already up on the link tree if you want to do a deep dive and do some reading, get familiar with everything that is pertaining to the preliminary season here. And to talk about pathways. So we're at the very beginning. We are at the preliminaries. And for competitors, the ultimate goal of the USLAC is to prepare a competitor to compete at the world level. So there's the World Latte Art Championship, and every country hosts a similar kind of structure in order to prepare a competitor to compete at the highest possible level. From the preliminaries, though, we're just starting out, just kind of dipping our toes. And the way it works is at the preliminary level, you can compete at multiple if you so choose. But the top 4 competitors from each prelim get guaranteed entry to the qualifier. The qualifying competition will likely happen sometime in January, but to be determined. And at the qualifier level, it gets a little bit harder. The round structure gets a little bit harder. And then at the qualifying level, the top 12 competitors move on to the national level. And at the nationals, the competition is at the highest level for the US level, because we're trying to get all of the drinks under your tool belt for when you compete at Worlds. So those are the kind of levels of competition that we are going through. And as I go through round structure in a little bit, hopefully it makes a little bit more sense. But again, the end goal is to compete at the world level latte art championship. For judges, if you are judging, if you've come back to judging, or if you're just starting out, preliminaries are a great way to potentially, choose something else. If you visual judged for us in the past and you're more curious about technical judging, preliminaries is a great way to try that out. Or if you want to learn the visual judging system, again, great way to kind of experience that. So at the preliminaries, similarly at the qualifying level, you can go ahead and sign up if you're free, or we'll invite you back as well. And yeah, just again, more chances, more opportunities to hone your judging skills. And at the national level, it starts to become invite only to participate in the judging there, but still a pretty good time. And then beyond that, after the national level, you could go ahead and join judging at the world level at certifying events throughout the year. And if you enjoy all of this and want to kind of help make the magic happen, feel free to reach out to us. And we are always looking for people to join the committee here. So it's a fun time. So that is our kind of pathway for judges throughout the season. Judges Code of Conduct also exists. I will not read out the words here, but do highly recommend that everyone take just a brief moment just to look it over before coming to competition, before judging, just to make sure that we all feel nice and aligned in what we are here to do as judges for our competitors. So that is here. Please take a moment and take a look. And again, since everything is kind of driving towards the world level, we want to stay aligned with the World Coffee Competition core values of support, respect, coffee excellence, professionalism, and honesty. So hopefully all pretty self-explanatory, but in short, we're here to support each other. We're here to try to get the best out of coffee and milk possible and have a good time while doing so. So yeah, I hope we all have fun together this season. Conflicts of interest. If you are a competitor and you know that someone on the judging panel you've got a conflict with or even a potential conflict with, please let us know at your earliest convenience so that we can ensure that that person does not judge you, and vice versa. If you are a judge and you recognize someone on the competitor list, please let us know as soon as possible so that we can ensure that no potential bias occurs in that way. So again, just let us know. We will do our best. Okay, in the competition, we are judging baristas on the visual attributes in the cup and identical patterns across cups. I'll go over the format just to make that sentence a little bit more clear, but we're looking at contrast, we're looking at overall impression and a bunch of other things, in addition to the actual performance itself, both in action and in talking. So the preliminary competition is a single round competition. You go ahead, you pour once and you give it your best shot. You'll have time to practice beforehand, but that's the structure. So in this competition, you're pouring 2 sets of drinks, and each set is going to be poured against a predetermined or a predetermined design that you have to print out beforehand, with the goal of making 2 identical pours for each picture. So at the preliminary level, you are required to pour 2 matching free pour lattes and 2 matching free pour macchiatos. And you have 9 minutes to pour these 4 drinks, which is a relatively generous amount of time, but you do have to think about your workflow in order to get all drinks out within that time frame as well. So that is the kind of way it works on the broader stage. To talk about the photographs really quickly. So when you do, if you are deciding to compete at the preliminary level, we do recommend, again, that you create a design for your free pour latte, you create a design for your free pour macchiato, take a picture of it, and then print it out. And when you compete, that picture needs to be brought up on stage, and that picture needs to be labeled with what it is. It needs to be labeled as free pour latte. It needs to be labeled as free pour macchiato in order for the judges to know what they're judging. And what is on the screen here is pulled directly from the rules and regulations. Again, if you need, the rules and regulations are linked on the USCC website. They're linked on the USLAC link tree that was shown earlier. So again, as we talk through everything today, try to remember that, reading the rules and regulations is essentially the key to success. Knowing the rules and regulations, make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what's required on stage. So that's tip number one. You need 2 photos. Both of them need to be labeled with what they are. Number 2 is when you are doing your routine, the rules state that the competitor must present drinks in the order in which the drink categories are set on the visual and technical score sheets. Just to highlight on the score sheets themselves, free pour latte is first, free pour macchiato is second. So please present your drinks in that order. Okay. And let's go through once again. So our preliminary, again, 9 minutes, 2 free pour lattes, 2 free pour macchiatos. Pretty straightforward. Gives you the experience of doing 2 sets of drink in 1 routine, and the kind of challenge of making a free pour design for a latte and a free pour design for a macchiato. In the rules and regulations, we do state that the latte cup is around 10 ounces in volume. The macchiato cup is around 3 ounces in volume, just for reference. To talk about the rest of the season, what does it look like? How do we kind of progress from here? In the qualifying competition, we are starting to get a little bit more complex, starting to show all of the requirements that are going to be at the world level. So at the qualifying competition, we now transition to an 11-minute run time, 2 free pour lattes, 2 free pour macchiatos, and 2 designer lattes as well. So really kind of getting in the reps, doing 1 of each design that's required at the world level, and fitting it all into a 11-minute run frame. So we start to see a little increase in difficulty there. And then at the national level, what is required is the first round is 2 sets of free pour lattes and a free pour macchiato set in 9 minutes. This is the same as the World Latte Art semifinal round. So we're keeping it here just to get that practice in. As you can see, it's 6 drinks in 9 minutes. It's not a whole lot of time. So by this point, your routines need to be relatively dialed in, and your workflow definitely needs to be dialed in as well. So putting that out here now so that you can think about it and work around it as we kind of progress through the season. Same thing with the final round. The final round instead is 10 minutes, 2 sets of free pour lattes, 1 set of designer lattes. And that is the same as the World Latte Art final round as well. So again, that is the entirety of our round structure throughout the season. You can kind of see the progression of difficulty of the requirements as we kind of move through. And so we hope that you view this as a fun challenge and create some beautiful designs for us to look at this season. So if you have any questions, our email will be at the end of this presentation, and we're always here to support as well. So yeah, that is that. Beverage definitions are latte can take a single espresso, double espresso, or a ristretto, and the macchiato can take a single espresso or a ristretto, entirely up to you in terms of how you want to prepare your drinks. The extraction times for those espressos, minimum 15 seconds for macchiatos, minimum 20 seconds for lattes. We'll elaborate on that later. And of course, you only are allowed to use the coffee and milk that is available at the host venue. Otherwise, you will get a 0 on that presentation. I've mentioned free pour latte art and I've mentioned designer latte art. Just to briefly highlight what that means. Free pour latte art means no etching. It's as it sounds. Free pour latte art is only milk that you are pouring with your hand and a pitcher, and that's it. So utilizing typical techniques, dry foam techniques in order to create designs there. At the qualifying level, we start to introduce that designer latte, which is where you are allowed to use etching tools. You are allowed to use one color in your design, but that's not a focus of the preliminaries, so we'll cover that when we do the qualifying competition OLS. But for now, at the preliminary competition, I just want to highlight no etching. That's it. Cool. Oh, so nice we did it twice. Okay. What to bring. At the preliminary competition, we ask that you bring your bar towels. So one for the steam wand, one to clean the station, and then one for your portafilter. And more if you so desire. The host will have milk pitchers available if need be, but of course, if you're competing, you're latte artists, you probably have a favorite pitcher. Please go ahead and bring it. And for cups, if you have a favorite cup, if you're practicing with a certain set of cups, you are allowed to bring them for the preliminary competition as long as they meet the requirements set in the rules and regulations. But the host will have cups if you do not want to or do not have favorite cups. We also ask that you bring an apron as well. And of course, labeled photos of your designs. This is an example from the Nationals in Portland, and we'll talk about this in depth later on, but as you can see, the photos are listed out for each design. The designs are written there, and then we do have a little flair here where there are drawings of what the designs are supposed to be, but the drawings themselves are completely unnecessary. I cannot stress that enough, but they are a fun touch. So do the photos and design and the wording however you wish. But as long as we have a photo and a label of what it is, that's all we need. Okay. For judges, you should be able to confidently and competently assess a barista's performance in visual and technical skills and use the full scoring range. We'll talk about that. And then when we're scoring, we should accurately score and avoid safe scoring or just automatic scoring because you've seen the same design earlier that day, or you or you're like, that's good. None of that. The visual judges, their scoring weighs the most. So we run a full day calibration the day prior to competition to make sure that we are calibrated and can accurately score. On the judging panel, there's typically one head judge, one technical judge, and 2 visual judges on the panel itself. Sometimes there is a shadow judge as well that can assist the head judge or the technical judge as need be. Okay, and then the evaluation scale for scoring drinks. We do have 2 kinds of scores that you can view on the score sheet. We have the yes/no category, which yes is 1 point, no is 0 points. And then we have a labeled 0 to 6 kind of qualitative scale there. So 0 is unacceptable, 1 is acceptable, average is 2, good is 3, very good is 4, excellent is 5, extraordinary is 6. Those words are there to help judges. So we'll talk about this when we talk about scoring, but they're there to assist us when we are trying to score drinks. So we'll talk about that. Half scores do exist beginning at the acceptable level. So acceptable plus, average plus, good plus, all the way up. To kind of articulate if you see a category, or if you're scoring a category where it's better than good, but maybe not quite very good, for instance, and that would be a 3.5. Okay, and at this point, I think I've talked enough, and I'm going to pass it off to Amanda Pond, one of our head judges for the season, to talk about visual judging.
Hi everyone, I'm Pond. Thank you for the intro, David, and doing all the talking. So let's get started on visual calibration here. So we have several categories that we judge on the visual side, and this is kind of a nice way to summarize those. So we are looking at overall appealing look, harmony, contrast, quality of foam, and level of difficulty successfully achieved. And next slide, please. So let's look at some examples. We're not going to judge these yet because we're going to go through some examples to judge later and kind of calibrate all together. But yeah, just we'll kind of go through the next ones. So next slide. So these are some types of designs that you can expect. Might not be in the prelim round, might also be in the prelim round, but yeah, this is kind of what we've seen in past competitions. Next slide. Wonderful. And next slide, please. And this is what you can expect from the world stage. And this is like the sheet that they were presenting to the judges. So a great example of a nice labeled sheet here that is in order with how they're presenting the drinks. The one on the left does include sketches as well. Not necessary. It's just kind of an added flair there. All right, next slide. So how are my cups scored? We're going to be analyzing the scoring scale and breaking down how the drink is scored specifically, and really kind of diving into the details of our score sheet. So let's get into it. Next slide. So for judging language, we want to provide clear, consistent, neutral, and unbiased comments for both our scores as well as the competitor. We really want our language to reflect the scores that we're given. And we're going to be guiding you through that throughout the whole process on every single level beyond prelims. It's just very important. Our goal is to be able to have a competitor get back their score sheet and essentially have no questions about it. They read the comments and they say, okay, yes, this makes sense. Thank you. All right, next slide, please. I'll linger here for a minute for anyone who wants to snag this QR code, but we have a lot of supportive material for judges and judging language that we like to use. It's really awesome. So please take a moment to grab that. I'll wait like 3 more seconds as I finish this sentence. All right. Visual judging. So for free pour, what's challenging, what patterns do you know, and what our evaluation will be based on? Visual judging, it can sound pretty straightforward at first. You're just like, oh, is this design cool or not? But you're going to get your face down in there. You're going to be looking at these up close, personal. So it's a lot that goes into it, actually. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the visual score sheets here. So that you'll be getting. So as you can see, we have our free pour latte side and our free pour macchiato on the bottom, as well as performance section at the very bottom there. And for every free pour latte and free pour macchiato, we have all of those categories I mentioned earlier. You'll notice that there's one of every category and only one drink for there. That's because one visual judge will be assessing one drink for all those categories, except for the very first one, which is 2 identical patterns matching the presented picture. That's the only time a judge will be looking at both drinks and the picture. Otherwise, they'll be focused on the drink in front of them. You'll become very familiar with this sheet moving forward, whether you are a judge or a competitor. All right, next slide, please. So all of these scores add up to 420 points total. But the visual score is a possibility of 336 points between the two judges. So that is the maximum amount you can get. It is very, very hard to get that, but let's aim for the stars. So, and hopefully this OLS will help you get there. Next slide, please. So we have some multipliers. So these are going to be where points really start adding up. And so those are under two identical patterns matching the presented picture. Again, that is where judges are looking at both cups as well as the picture. That's 2 times. Contrast between ingredients. So we're looking at a nice contrast that is crisp between the white milk and the brown there. So that's another 2 times multiplier. Then level of difficulty successfully achieved. I'll dive into this a little bit more, but that is a 2 times multiplier as well. So we're looking at what is, if it was difficult and achieved well versus simple and achieved well, or simple and not achieved well. There's kind of a lot of ways we can look at that one. And then overall appealing impression, which is my favorite category, and it is the biggest multiplier that we have here with the 4. So you can get 24 possible points in that. All right, next slide, please. So 2 patterns identical to the picture presented. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but so it's the only scoring section where you assess as a judge the 2 drinks and compare them to the photo presented. It's not about the quality of the pattern. It's about where things match and if everything is lining up with both the other drink and the photo. Points are awarded for replicating the pattern shown, and 2.5 points would be awarded if one was identical and the other one bore no resemblance. So say if you gave us a picture of a swan and one was a swan and the other one was a Jigglypuff from Pokemon, then that'd be 2.5 points. Next slide, please. So this is an example from the world stage as well. So you can see that this would be, it's kind of hard to tell. The latte was, I think these macchiatos actually, no, they are lattes. We're sitting for a little bit, so the foam quality isn't super great, but you can see that all the patterns are the same. And that's kind of what we're looking for, and kind of as a judge, what you're going to be looking at as a whole for that category. All right, next slide. Visual foam quality. So judges should assess the visual foam quality for a bubble-free, smooth, glossy, rich consistency. And this is as soon as your drink is put down in front of you for your judge, you are looking at that immediately, because we want to give the best score possible for this as it was served. As we all know, from if you put a latte out and you call someone's name 10 times and they don't come to the bar yet, by the time they get it, it doesn't look as beautiful as when you freshly poured it. So we really, really want to be able to score that as soon as it's set down on the marker. So the first score that will be recorded, not after the drink has sat for a while, as the foam changes as it cools. Wonderful. Next slide. Contrast between ingredients. So you're only going to be judging the drink in front of you, and you get high points for sharp contrast of the crema and milk foam here, but there is some consideration taken for areas of the pattern that may have intentionally been mixed to incorporate. We see a lot of this with fur or sometimes feathers a little bit. They're intentionally blurred. So we have to take that into consideration with this score. And so here, I think, is a really good example. We'll do a quick scoring. How would we score this? Everyone throw your answers in chat. But you can see the lines. This has sat for a little bit, but there are some pretty crisp lines there. But the mane of this horse creature looks a little, looks blurred. And is that intentional or not? So David said 2.53. We have a 3 as well. Wonderful. So I'm in line with like 3. I think that the lines, like there's definitely a separation between the foam and the crema there, except for in that main part, but that's where we might take a little bit of liberty, because it looks like it's meant to be, it looks like it's soft there. But there's definitely a little bit of blurring, especially in the eye. It starts kind of blending all together. So wonderful. 3s all around. Next slide, please. All right. This one, let's do another, throw some more scores in here. And this is again for the contrast. So don't take into account foam quality. We don't want to cross our scores here. But this looks like a little rooster. And again, we have some feathers going on, but there are some intentional lines that are clearly meant to be not as soft. So again, 3s in chat. Love it. Perfect. We're all calibrated. Let's move on to the next one then. Harmony, size, and position. Again, this is one of my other favorite categories. I don't know why. I think just how something composes in a cup is really neat. But judges are only going to be scoring the cup presented to them. We expect the handle, this is important for both judges and competitors, the handle to be placed at 3 o'clock, assuming that the judge is right-handed. That is how it's written in the rules. Is it presented, positioned well in the cup, and is it symmetrical? If it's meant to be a symmetrical design, we are expecting it to be symmetrical, and this is where those points will be awarded or docked for that. So take that into consideration. And does it sit well in the cup? Does it have a lot of negative space, or is it too crowded? Is it too small? Is it leaning kind of to the left? This little B, I think, is a really great example of some really good harmony here. If we want to get picky, he's like a little bit to the left, just a little bit too much, but barely. But as we can see, there's like a little flower there. And if we start to question if something is too crowded there, think of it, what would happen if that was gone? Would it be a weird empty space? And I'd say yes, in this example. So I think it's well placed there. There's a little bit of negative space above and below his wings. But if we put something there, would it be too crowded? And again, I think the answer is yes for that. So it's not always, does it fill the cup perfectly in every single spot? But if something was there or removed, would that look better or worse? So next slide. Successfully achieved level of difficulty. So high scores should only be awarded to difficult patterns successfully achieved. However, there's also the opportunity where someone does a simple design that was executed really well. It won't reach as high of a score as something that is very difficult and successfully achieved. But we also will see something that's very difficult that's not achieved super well. So we have a range of kind of going about scoring this depending on what we're presented with. But points should reward what is actually presented in the cup. If a competitor attempts a very difficult pattern but fails to represent that pattern at all in the presented drink, a low score should be expected. So it's kind of high risk, high reward type situation here. And yeah, that's pretty much sums it up. So next slide. All right, overall appealing look. Someone had once said, how would your mom feel about getting this drink? And that's still my favorite thing to say because moms naturally are our biggest supporters. So judges should review this look, the look of the drink in its totality based on its personal impact on them, including the creativity of the cup. To score this section, it may be worth considering how a customer rather than a coffee professional may score the presented pattern. I think this is really important because as coffee professionals, we see a lot of latte art. We watch a lot of latte art videos. We've seen a lot out there. And it's easy to say for this example here, oh, that beak is a little wiggly there. I don't know how I feel about this. Think of it as a customer. If you were a customer in a shop and you got this, it'd be wowed, you know? And there's other sections where, you know, that wiggly beak there might get docked off. So you're taking that personal impression with you. So yeah. Next slide, please. We blew through the visual side. Nice. And so we're getting to professional performance, the section, which is at the bottom of the visual sheet here. So we're looking for, this is a 4 times multiplier here. So it's very important. We're looking for eye contact, professional attire, which means an apron. It just means an apron. An explanation, and when we're talking about an explanation, we're not talking you can talk about your like the techniques going into your pour. It's not required, but it's also something that will be able to, how do I want to phrase this, like having a presentation will give a little bit more oomph. And we also want quality of images that are given if you give images for us. And then spills on cups. So if you're handing us a cup that has a spill down the edge or on the rim, that is something we're looking for there, because you wouldn't want to serve that to a customer. Essentially, this whole section is down to how would you serve a customer, treat your judges like they're customers in a shop. Yeah.
If I can hop in real quick on the quality of images section in particular, the quality of images just means like, is the picture look like it was printed in 2023, or does it look like it was printed in 2001? That's essentially it. So as long as the picture is clear and we can tell what the design is, no parts of it have been cut off that obscure the design. If you're like photoshopping it or something, that's it. So nothing too complicated there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. And so just to summarize professional performance again, it's how the competitor projects to the audience and their confidence, flair, and style that they display on the production of drinks, hospitality skills, including service skills, warmth, body language, professionalism, and tone they exhibit in their service to judges. So again, we're looking as if we're coming into a shop and kind of the hospitality that you're showing us there. And that is where I'm going to wrap this up, because I think our next slide is moving on to tech, where I will pass things off to Reiko. Thank you all, and Reiko, take it off.
Thanks, Pon. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Yes, let's talk about the tech side. Next slide, please. And if you're a returning competitor or a returning judge, this is not going to change. This is pretty straightforward in terms of scoring and how we notate that scoring. So again, on the evaluation scale, it's very much the same as what we were going over on the visual side. You get points if it's a yes, no points for no. For the score, and then we do have a 0 to 6 scoring range for a couple sections, and again we want to use that full range of vocabulary to support those number scores. So unacceptable is 0, again acceptable for 1, average 2, good 3, very good 4, excellent 5, and extraordinary 6. And of course, we have those half points in between as well. If it's not quite excellent, but it's better than very good. So again, we do want to use that full range and use the vocabulary to support that. Next slide, please. And here on the text sheets, again, we'll have the 2 columns for evaluating each set for the free pour latte and the free pour macchiato. And again, this is for each set. So you want to evaluate and observe the competitor, whether or not they're flushing the group head for the set of free pour lattes and not each. So it's evaluating for that set. So if they flush a group for 1 and not for the second, then that would be a no for that category, for example. And same goes for the free pour macchiato. So you're evaluating based on the 2 drinks that are being prepared for each of those categories and scoring it a yes or no. Did they or did they not? So it's all about watching exactly what the competitor is doing and being mindful of where they are moving to, so we do not impede on their workflow. So we want to make sure that we get in there to observe as much as possible, but we also don't want to be obstructing them as well. So these are very cut and dry. They did or they didn't flush your group, or make sure that they have a clean, dry basket before they insert it and immediately brew it. Do they have acceptable waste? So this is, again, when we have calibration day, we will evaluate different amounts of waste so that we can evaluate and score accordingly. If you're familiar with the barista side, it's a little bit more broken out, but here it's a cut and dry yes or no. Is it acceptable? Consistent dosing and tamping. Again, we want to evaluate and make sure that their process and their workflow of preparing that espresso shot is consistent within each set. making sure that the portafilter phalanges and the face are cleared off before inserting, and then of course immediately brewing after said insert, and then whether or not the extraction times are within 3-second variants. But for the macchiatos, we kind of waive that one. We just want to make sure that the shot pulls are at least 15 seconds. And for the free pour lattes, they have to be at least 20 seconds. So if they are not within those time to second values, then they will be an automatic 0 for those categories. All right, next slide. Again, so for the milk category, same deal for each set. We're evaluating if they or did they not do these things. So making sure that the pitchers are actually clean and empty. And in fact, that's actually evaluated at the start of the presentation. We want to make sure that we look inside the pitcher on the exterior and make sure that they're clean. There's no water, there's no milk residue or pre-portioned milk in those pitchers. So that is the first thing that we will evaluate. Then we want to make sure that there is purging of the steam on prior to steaming, clean steam on after, and again a purge afterwards, and whether or not there's acceptable milk waste remaining in that pitcher. And we will go over more granularly during calibration day for the judges, but we are evaluating whether or not it is more than 3 ounces of milk for each set. Next slide. For hygiene, so this is where we see the 0 to 6 range. And as you see broken out as some examples of what we are observing during the performance, or whether or not the steam one is clean, and also whether or not the proper usage of towels are appropriated, so not cross-contaminating the dedicated milk to wiping down the counter and then back to the steam one, etc. And of course, making sure the pitcher is clean prior to the performance. There's no water or milk residue in there. This also includes finger placement, thumb placement on the cups. So if we think about how those cups are being set down, and especially those smaller cups, we want to be mindful of where the hands are and where they may be potentially coming in contact with the customer who is drinking from said cup. For performance, again, 0 to 6 scale, we evaluate how organized and how clean the space is at the start end to end. So at this point, we have to make note of what was observed at the start, and at the end, whether or not it looked better or the same or different in any way, and score it accordingly. And then our overall impression of the use of space, the use of their wares, organization, and movement, and their overall presentation throughout that preparation of their drinks. Next slide. And that is it for tech.
Cool. There is a whole section in the rules and regulations, section 15, where it kind of goes through some all of the potential ways that you could be disqualified in the competition. So that is to highlight a couple: no liquids or ingredients on top of the machine whatsoever. We're talking a wet shot glass even can do it. So no liquids at all on top of the machine. Adjusting the espresso machine is a no-no. Adjusting the grinder is great, but the espresso machine, not at all. And then again, not adjusting or not declaring conflicts of interest as well. That is it. So pretty straightforward, but again, rules and regulations are your best friend. Please read it prior to competition, and ask us if you have any questions, because everything about the competition exists in there. And that is that. To kind of talk about scheduling real quick, for these competitions, we are operating on the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday. Friday is for judges. Friday, we do go through our calibration day. We arrive roughly 9 o'clock. We'll email out, so don't worry about this for now. But to give you a sense, 9 o'clock, we'll arrive, get to know each other, go through some calibration tips, and go through what we're looking for in depth. We'll take lunch, and then we'll finish our calibration day around 3, maybe 3:30, but more likely 3, and get you on your way. So yeah, nice, quick and tidy. Should be a fun time. And then after that, we go into the competition. For judges, we'll arrive in the morning. Again, 9 to 11:30 is a rough time, but we'll confirm a little bit later. We'll get our lunch on, and then we will judge competition throughout the afternoon. We will announce the winners on Sunday, and that's the schedule, more or less. Again, look out for emails from us, and we'll let you know how it goes. From here, I'll pass it along to Kalina, our stage manager, to kind of talk through the competitor side of things.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So this part will be more directed towards our competitors. And as for your schedule, Saturday or Sunday, you'll be competing one of those days. You will obviously get your schedules ahead of time. Please arrive in the morning at your competition venue for your practice time. The practice time schedule will be released by our presiding head judge about 1 to 2 weeks prior to the competition. And in the afternoon is when your competition will start. End of day Sunday, approximately about 5 p.m. is when we will be making the announcements. Next slide, please. So practice time. So you have 30 minutes of practice time. We will not extend the practice time if you are late. So please be punctual. Better still, please be early. All right. Next slide, please. For competition time, you will have 5 minutes of preparation or setup time. Please check and ensure that your station is set and clean. You may ask the hit runner for re-cleaning of specific areas. If it's not up to your standard, you get to set up your station within that 5 minutes. And if you have forgotten any equipment or accessories, you may exit the stage to retrieve the item. Just remember that your setup time will not be stopped. So no person other than the competitor, very important, the competitor's interpreter and USLAC volunteers and officials may be on stage during the competitor's prep, performance, and cleanup time. If this were to happen, it is, I believe, also an event for disqualification. Next slide, please. For a competition, you have 9 minutes. You must put your hand in the air and call time to begin your performance. The timekeeper will start time the moment you call time. The timekeeper will give you a 5 minute, 3 minute, 1 minute, and 30 seconds remaining warning during the 9 minutes competition time. The timekeeper is required to give this warning as they are happening, even if you might be speaking. You may ask the timekeeper for a time check at any point. The timekeeper will stop the time when you raise your hand again and call time. You will not be penalized or rewarded for finishing early. All of your drinks must be served at the judges' presentation table. Next slide, please. So when you are on stage, for every second that you go over the 9 minute competition time, you lose 1 point. If the stage performance period exceeds 11 minutes, it will result in disqualification. You may only utilize the work area that is provided. Any other furniture and equipment placed will result in automatic disqualification. For cleanup, you are expected to remove all your personal equipment and supplies and thoroughly wipe down the station. However, your served drinks will be evaluated by the judges, and a runner will clear the drinks from the judges' table once the head judge gives us the okay. Next slide, please. Technical timeout. So during preparation and competition time, if you feel that there is technical problem with your espresso machine, your grinder, your electrical equipment, or your AV equipment, please raise your hand and call technical timeout and ask for the stage manager or the head judge. The timekeeper will make note and stop the time. Next slide, please. So what happens then? If your stage manager or head judge agrees that there is a technical problem that can be easily resolved, they will decide on the appropriate amount of time that you should be credited. Once technician fix the problem, your time will resume. If the technical problem cannot be resolved in a timely manner, the stage manager or head judge will decide on whether you should wait to continue your performance or stop the performance and start again at reallocated time. If you must stop the competition time, you, along with the head judge and stage manager, will reschedule for you to compete in full again. If it's determined that the technical issue is due to your error or your personal equipment, the head judge will determine if no additional time will be given to you, and the preparation or your time will resume without extra time being credited. Unfamiliarity with the competition equipment is no grounds for a technical timeout. This is why practice time is important. You should come for your practice time and make sure that you're familiar with the equipment that are being used. Inconsistency or variation between group heads requiring adjustment is only grounds for technical timeout during your preparation time. Next slide, please. Well, final reminders, please arrive early. You need to stand by at the competition area 30 minutes before your preparation time. A few reminders, and this is repeating what we mentioned earlier, some things that you should bring: aprons, your small wares, pitchers, cups, rags, and labeled photographs of your design. And let's talk about our hosts. We have two hosts this time. Red House Roasters from Newark, New Jersey. That's the address on there. If you're competing in this location, you'll be working with a Simonelli Mythos grinder and a Sanremo F18. If you're competing in White Rhino in Dallas, Texas, and that's their address there, you will be working with a La Marzocco Linea PB and Malconic GBW. All right, and I'll pass the floor back to David or Chris for calibration.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take a look at a bunch of lattes, both from the world stage, from world latte artists, from the US stage, just to kind of get you guys warmed up in terms of scoring. So to explain this exercise, go ahead, pop open your chat box, and when we go through scoring, or when we pop open an image, we'll tell you what visual category we are scoring, and just go ahead and type in your best estimate for what you would score in that category. So I'll let Chris take this first one. RB.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Hi, everyone. All right, so let's get started. We're going to go ahead and start with visual foam quality, because that is what we would normally go ahead and take a look at. It's a little bit more of a challenge because it is on a screen. We can't see the lighting and stuff quite so well, but please go ahead and put in your best guess. All right, so I'm seeing some threes, I'm seeing some twos. You guys are also welcome to throw in some supportive language. So yeah, so we have it's a little flat. We have a little bit of shine on the sides, but overall, you know, we're seeing some bubbles, especially some of the bigger ones that you can kind of see at the top or on the edges. These are things that we don't want to see. We want smooth, no bubbles, extra shine, nice and glossy. Let's move on to contrast between ingredients. as we're going through this, I guess I'll actually read off some of the things that we have grayed out in the score sheets as a reminder. So clear defined lines, contrast, light blurring in the picture, significant blurring in the picture, lacks clarity. So, we're looking for definition between white and brown. Some 3s, 3.5s, maybe a 4. Yeah, this is pretty good. I'd say 3.5 is right on the money. We do have a bit of blurring in each of these rosettas, so the wings, the chest, a little bit of washing around the sides. So washing is when we can see some white kind of blurring out into the brown. You might also say ringing, so you might see like a little bit of ring. So we kind of look to the left and down a little bit. There's a little bit of a ring going on. We also have what looks to be maybe a drop off the side towards the bottom near the tail. So we see little patches of white kind of throughout. They're not super thick, but yeah, so not too bad. There's a lot going on. This one would definitely be a little tough, just based off the design itself, but 3.5. I know that Hans kind of did this one, but let's talk about that harmony sign and harmony size and position. You guys want to put your scores in? I'm seeing 4, 4.5, maybe a 5. Yeah, so this is very good, right? Main complaints, it's a little low in the cup, a little to the left. Crowding maybe a little bit in the center, but you couldn't take away these elements and say that it didn't deserve to be in the cup. Overall, this is really good, guys. This is really nice. So let's talk about level of difficulty successfully achieved. It's a fun one. And our little reminders here: is it a complex design? Is it safe? How mastered is it? Is it messy? Is it rushed? How many components are in here? That's always a really nice one. Is it all rosettas? Is it all just single pours like a tulip? Or are we combining a lot of different elements? Are there free pour? Are there unique patterns that have to be mastered in order for this design? 4, 5, 4.5, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm definitely in the 4.5, maybe a 5 myself. This is really impressive. There's a lot going on. We've got 5 different rosettas, several different free pours. There's a slow setta in there, I think, too. This is pretty impressive, and it's done really well, right? A little bit of lacking that ultimate mastery, which is kind of bringing this down from the 6. We've kind of noted some of the things with regards to positioning, maybe a little bit of the blurring and such, but this is a really nice design. It's impressive, right? So let's talk overall appealing impression is going to be our final category here. As Pon said, what would your mom or parent, grandma, grandpa, what did they think? Notes here that we have on the sheet. Pattern was confusing. Was it impressive? Is it progressive? Surprising? Expressionistic or realistic? 5, it's a happy B. Yeah. This is a great one too, because you can absolutely recognize it. It's super realistic, right? 5.5. Yeah. This would make you smile. If it was an angry B, I don't know if it'd be a 5.5, but definitely up there. Big smiles. So yeah, what this is right off the bat. Some of the elements, that's a flower, that's a leaf. Super adorable. So this is definitely 5.5. So great. Shall we move on to another? Good job, guys. All right, this is a fun one. So this is a macchiato pattern. It is a baby seahorse, not an adult seahorse. So let's do our best and talk about that visual phone quality. Do your best. I know it's small and off to the side. Yeah, good note, David. So, and yeah, they got the label on there, but you can't see the whole cup. That is not preferred for any of these, right? So some says 2.5, 2, 1.5 for the thick bubbles. Yep, yep. Yeah, definitely lower. Again, kind of hard to see. We have big bubbles. It's probably pretty stiff looking foam. Not a lot of gloss. The big bubbles is definitely hard though. It's definitely big and dry and not too great. You know, maybe I've been sitting here for a little bit, but doubt it. So I'm calibrated with that 1.5, maybe a 2 if we had taken a picture of it a little bit sooner. So let's talk about the contrast between ingredients. We got another 2, 2, 2.5, 2.5. 2, 2.5. Yeah, definitely in the 2, 2.5 range. You know, remembering that it's a macchiato, so things are going to be a lot smaller. We do have some definition. We can tell where the head is. We can tell where the tail is, but there is a lot of washing in the rosettas in the back. We can see a bit of a ringing, little white splotches kind of throughout. And that tulip, we should definitely have some pretty clearly defined separation in that heart on the back. So it's definitely a little bit of a rough one. Yep. 2, 2.5, good. Let's move on to harmony, size, and position of pattern. And if you're not on the USLAC committee, I'd love to see some quicker answers. Get in there, guys. We're not going to judge you. This is for learning. Well, we are going to judge you, but it's still for learning. So we have 3, we have 3, we have a 2, 3. Okay, so this one's fun. You know, it's small. There is one thing I want to see if anyone notes it. That's definitely wrong in this category. It's something that a lot of people forget about, but handle to the left. Thank you for answering that one. Yeah, no, handle is to the left, so that definitely brings it down a little bit. Position of the design, it's pretty well centered, maybe a little bit far down. That tail is kind of reaching. If they had not touched the side of the cup, it would have been a little bit higher. It's actually pretty well positioned. It's right in the center. If the handle had been on the right side, you know, seahorse is looking in the right direction. But we also have a little bit of some disharmony going on, right? So the back of this seahorse is huge, the tail super thin, fat head. You know, we want to make sure that each of these things looks good next to each other. So probably, you know, not so much of a big white space on the back. They maybe added a little bit more to that tulip and made everything just a little bit more of an even line for the back and tail. That would have helped quite a bit. And then of course they get dinged for that handle. Let's talk about level of difficulty successfully achieved. This is always a fun one too with macchiatos, because it's so much more of a challenge because of how small it is. You know, anything, a lot of the times getting a heart or maybe a small tulip, you know, when they can do something that takes multiple pours, it truly is impressive. Again, what we're looking for is a safe design, a complex design, how mastered, how messy and rushed. Got 3, 3, 3. Lots of threes. 2.5. All right, so 3, 2.5, definitely in there. It's a pretty complex design for a macchiato, no doubt. You have a free pour, you have a tulip, you have a rosetta at the bare minimum. So it's definitely a little bit of a challenge. Is it mastered? No, but this is good, right? You know what it is. If this was served, you would know that it's a seahorse. There's a good amount of work that could be done, but they still got the pattern down. And remembering our language versus our score, arguably, yes, I would agree that this is arguably better than the image presented. Good design, good as a 3. Remember to translate our words over into our scores. If I said that this was very good, we would say it's 4. But no, this is a good design. Pretty solid, but still a good amount of work to be done to have it considered mastered. Next, we're going to talk about that overall appealing impression. Three, lots of 3s. Again, it's good. We know what it is. It's realistic. It's not impressive. It's not anything that we're super excited about. I'm not blown away by this. But we know what it is, right? We know it's a seahorse. And that's usually going to get us right where we need to at a 3. So very solid. Good work, everyone.
While we have the opportunity with 2 pours and an image.
My bad. I zoomed in. Sorry.
You're good.
I zoomed into the great. 2 identical patterns. Let's talk about it.
So again, while you guys type into the chat, the reference for scoring for this category is that if one image or if one pour is exactly the same as what is printed as the image and the other bears no resemblance, the score for that circumstance is 2.5 or an average plus. So in this case, just talking about what we have here, we have a reference image and then 2 pours that are identical, mostly identical to each other. Are they identical to the image?
Another nice tool here, especially when we get to some of the more complex latte designs, is to count the elements. We'll run into things where maybe tulips have certain numbers of layers, or we'll have little dots. Count the dots, count the layers. We want to see the same number on both drinks. This is also the category where we're looking at how full each of the cups are. They should be relatively the same. We don't want one that has a severe dip and one that's overfilled. David's ready to keep going, so let's get our scores in.
But yeah, so roughly average plus here.
2.5. Yep, for sure. So we can see some differences in the size of the torso. Definitely in the tail. The one on the right has a little bit more of a tail going on. They're both a little bit different in terms of the photo. Yep, the one on the right is slightly underfilled in comparison. The picture itself is actually probably a little overfilled. And then, the positioning of the wings on the back, the little tulip, bit of a difference in terms of the size of the heart compared to the photo. They're about the same between the 2 cups, but you'll notice that the inner heart is much smaller on that first photo. So average, definitely a good bit more to work on to get to that good category here. Move on to number 3. Great. So let's go ahead and do visual foam quality. Remember, what we're looking for here is silky and creamy, shiny and glossy, no bubbles. Is there dry foam? Is it matte? Is there gloss? got a 4. .5. A bit of a range going right here. 3, 2, 2.5, 2.5. Yeah, so this is a bit of a challenge again. We don't know if it's been sitting for a little bit. It's definitely on a computer, but yes, there are some really big bubbles, especially if you zoom in around the edges and such. It's pretty matte. There's not as much gloss. The sides, that's really just kind of like the light bouncing off to a certain degree, but you know, there's a ton of hitting in the milk that's going on here, and a good amount of blurring as well. Sorry, blurring is elsewhere, but you know, it's pretty dry overall. So we want this to be much smoother. Let's talk about the contrast between ingredients.
Oh, that's how my days start. And then well, at least the applicant eats a difference.
Okay, we got 3.5, that's 3, 3, 3, 3.5. Yeah, so let's talk about, we've got some marbling going on. So marbling, I don't think that we've defined that term. That's when we kind of have like brown, different shades of brown, maybe a little bit of white kind of circling around the back, a little bit of ringing at the top. We have some washing out, you know, definitely at the beak and around some of the sides. A little bit of some blurring. We have different quality rosettas going on here. Some are a little bit more defined, some are not. Just not as crisp overall. Yep, left side of the cup. Have some serious washing going on for sure. Not bad, but definitely not very good. There's a lot to be worked on here. So moving on to harmony, size, and position of pattern. We have a 4, 4.5, 4. 4. Yep, I agree. So our handle is in the right spot, so that's great. It is more or less in the right position, pretty upfront. It is a little small. We do have some space, especially under the beak, maybe at the top, on either side of whatever that thing's called on the top of a rooster. You know, we could probably add some dots. We could probably add something else, or the image itself could simply be a little bit bigger. It's also to the left. We look at the space between the beak and the side of the cup, and then, you know, the side on the right, a little bit too much. But it's still very good. It's pretty symmetrical overall, standing straight up. And then pretty well positioned. It's not too far to the left. It's not crowding the cup on the sides. So level of difficulty successfully achieved. Is it complex? Is it safe? How mastered? How messy? Another 4, 4. 4.5, 4.5, 4. Yeah, 4, 4.5, somewhere in this range is definitely right. I'm a little inclined to give it the 4, but you know, what needs to be worked on here, we got to crisp up these rosettas, definitely kind of change the positioning a little bit. It's still a very complex design. There's a good amount going on here, 3 pores, several rosettas, pretty well spaced. But if we could clean up some of these other aspects and get them to be a little bit better, we'd be closer to that 5 to 6. Maybe add a couple more things too. So pretty impressive overall. Overall appealing impression. Do you know what this is? Do you not? Is it exciting? Got a 5, 4.5, 4.5, 5. Yeah, I mean, we definitely know this is a rooster. It's pretty exciting. I'm inclined to give it a 5. There's a lot going on here. You don't get this in your average cup. It's pretty great. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be up there. If we had just solidified, yeah, it looks exactly like that. We don't have an image to compare to, but please look at the chicken in the chat. So, hey, good work, guys. That was great. Do we have more? We sure do. All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to look at left is going to be 1 and right is going to be 2. So I'd love for you guys to pay attention to the left side. Normally, when you're judging, there is a V1 and a V2 cup. So we're going to go ahead and start by looking at the left side, and we'll do that visual foam quality. Then we'll do the 2 identical patterns. So tell me a little bit about the foam quality on the left. Got it 3. It will help if you zoom in on this. I think that we kind of ran into that with the rooster. At 3.5. Yeah, so we have a little bit of a shine. You can definitely tell that there's a little bit of this matte going on the sides, some bubbles. We can actually see them on the sides, and right in the center there's a big one right underneath the head of the rose. What is this? It is a rose. Yeah, great. One big bubble, top of stem. Yep, you totally got it. 3, pretty good. So, but not great. Let's talk about that 2 identical. So let's compare the 2. We have 2.5, 2.5. Pretty average, right? So note 1 cup is definitely underfilled in comparison. We have some differences in the size of the petals around the head, differences in leaf size, and a little bit in the stem positioning. One of these is taken a little bit of an angle, but yep, leaves are different, petals are different. 2.5 is right. So yeah, we have all the elements, but they're all a little bit off. Moving on, let's talk about the contrast between ingredients on the left side. Two. There 2. Average plus. Average plus, yep, 2.5. Yeah, so we definitely have some washing, we have some blurring. These rosettas are not clear at all. Stem almost completely gone right there at the top. We can barely see it. Marbling throughout, a little bit of washing. Yeah, we can still tell what it is. We can still tell what some of these elements are, but they are definitely getting lost in the let's move on to harmony, size, and position of the pattern. So you get more 2s. They've gotten their point for having the handle in more or less the right space. Design position is askew. It's a little high in the cup. Definitely disharmonious. We've got some pretty heavy bits at the top and maybe a little bit on the sides, and a very awkward thinness in the middle, and both laterally and horizontally. Yep. Why don't we go ahead and do the harmony, size, and position of the one on the right as well? Let's do a little bit of a comparison here. If you have to, turn your head. Good work, everyone. I'll do it too. 2.5. Last one, we pretty much came up to 2. This one is 2.5. We got a 3 in there. We have another 3. 2.5 right along to the cup. Yeah, so this one's a little bit of a challenge because with it being underfilled, it's kind of hard to tell, plus the angle, how close to the top that is. It might be it might be positioned a little too far up, but this is a little bit of a nicer positioning within the cup overall. It's a little bit harmonious. The elements themselves are a little bit more of a correct size. And we have a little bit of a better positioning of the handle itself. This is a little bit more of what they were looking or meaning to go with based on the photo that they provided. Still maybe a little big in some areas. We'd like to see maybe a little bit more going on the sides. Kind of a lot going on at the top, a lot going on at the bottom, and a very awkward middle. But this is most certainly better than the last one that we were looking at. So about half a point higher for sure. Moving on, level of difficulty successfully achieved. I'd like you to put in the one for the left and then the right as well. So just do 1, comma, and then 2, 2.5, 2, 2.5. 2, 2.5. Alrighty. Yeah, I agree with that. There's definitely one that's a little bit better. Pond is saying 1.5 on that first one. It's wrong, Pond. No. Yeah, just a me for sure. They still gave it their best shot. You can still tell that they're putting in some elements, but no, I mean, it's definitely a good bit worse. And that second one is significantly better than the other one, right? So definitely in that 2 to 2.5. Had they mastered it? Not at all. But we can kind of tell what it is. That first one definitely feels rushed. It feels messy. Second one, just a bit better. We can still kind of tell what it is. It's a complex design. This is hard to do in a macchiato cup, right? Moving on, let's go to overall appealing impression. $2.5. A 3. I did not specify left or right, did I? It's on me. We're talking about the left. Thank you, some. 2.53. Alrighty, so yeah, kind of following suit as our other categories, we do see things to be a little bit better on the right side. So, it's average. I don't know if we would necessarily know that this is a rose right off the bat for the left side, maybe for the right. If someone said, hey, it's a rose, you might be like, oh, that's usually something that we see in that 2 to 3 range, where it's a little bit surprising when someone says what it is. I forget what the term, what the language was that we used in that one, but it was exciting once explained. I think that's what it was. So yeah, so definitely that 2.5 for the first one, 3 for the second. Let's move on to whatever we have for our next one. Great. This is a great one. So let's go ahead and do foam quality for the one on the left. For those of you that don't know what this is, I will reveal it to you when we get to overall appealing impression. Got a 1.5, harsh. That's acceptable plus so far. Two. I think that we would give this one a baseline of 2. There are some big bubbles, there's some matte, there's a little bit of shine. We'd probably reserve that 1.5 for something pretty drastic, but fat bubbles that happen, maybe the milk is like way over steamed, really heavy crema that's causing those like bubbles to kind of stay there and linger for a long time. This isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not great. This is pretty average for what you'd expect to be going to just a random old coffee shop. No expectation for sure. Let's talk about the 2 identical patterns. So take a look at both. This is a wonderful one for my counting method. Lots of things to count. We have one head. We have 4 bubbles. We have 5 scales, I think. 3-ish legs. So that's all good. Three, 2.5, 3. One thing that we're having to make do without on this one is the photo of the actual. Yep, no photo. We got a 0. It was a trick that I completely forgot about to this moment. But yeah, you can't do it without a photo. If there is no photo, it's a 0, guys. It's a bummer. And it's really sad when this kind of stuff happens. They have to have a photo for this category. Otherwise, there is no presented photo to match to. Thank you. Yep. So you did all that counting for nothing. Let's move on to contrast between ingredients for the right side. We have a 2. Kelvin is saying an average amount of contrast. How do the rest of the committee feel? .5, 2.5, 2, blurring in the legs. And yeah, I definitely think that we're looking at a 2 here. There is no real distinction in these rosettas. We have a little bit in the blobs in the center, but you can actually see just a little bit kind of blurring between them. Definitely some washing on the sides. You know, these bubbles are not super crisp. Definitely a rough one. So about average. Looking at harmony. Harmony, size, and position. We're gonna have a bunch of 2s, 2.5. Yeah, so we're low in the cup. It could probably be a little bit bigger. There's some negative space beneath the head and on the back. Pretty disharmonious in the middle. That's a lot of crowding. A little rough. Yep, pretty average. How about the level of difficulty on the right side? Level of difficulty. Is it complex? Is it safe? Is it mastered? Is it messy? Is it pushed? 2, 2.5, 2.5. So we got that average plus going on. We have average. Yeah, probably going to fall into these lines of 2 to 2.5. Definitely messy. Not mastered. It's a little complex. It does have that as a redeeming quality. You know, there's some stuff going on here. Bit of a challenge to get all those little blobs into the circle. You know, there was definitely something attempted here, just didn't fall through. Now let's do that overall feeling impression. Let's do this one for the right side as well. Oops.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. We got 2 and 2, 2.5. Three. For me, this is definitely going to be a 2.5 to 3, somewhere in that range. This is a sea turtle. Yeah, and it does look like a jelly. It does look like it should have been a jellyfish. No, it's definitely a little bit fun. It's cute, especially once it's explained. I think that maybe we would see a little bit of a higher score with one of these than the other, but they're pretty close. The right side's definitely a little bit better, maybe a little bit more recognizable. It's good. It's a little surprising too. It's not a pattern that we always see out there, but it's nothing impressive. It's nothing super duper exciting. It's just good. Yeah. All right.
Okay, let's we have some other images for reference, but we'll save those for another time. Because we are out of time. So to kind of wrap things up, I'd first like to thank the entire LAC committee for being here, for presenting, and for helping us calibrate. And we hope that you found this session informative. We hope that you come away knowing what the expectations are for judging, what the expectations are for competing. Again, rules and regulations, USLAC Linktree has that. It has the score sheets and everything you need to know. To kind of wrap up, what makes a champion? What makes a champion is reading the rules and regulations. No, but what makes a champion is being able to pour all of these designs, making them as identical within a set as possible, making them with complexity and mastery, and making us feel good in the process, making the audience feel wowed by your passion for the craft, for breaking boundaries, for of what's possible with milk and coffee, and just kind of surprising us with your artistry. So yeah, it's, this is a really fun competition. We hope that you join us, and we hope that we can get a chance to see what you've been working on. And this is where we'll pause for a little bit. And if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute. Please feel free to type it in the chat. And we are, we're here to answer anything for a little bit longer. While you guys are, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead. We do have, I will again say thank you to everyone on the LAC team. There's a lot of hard work that goes in behind the scenes to make these competitions happen. So thank you very much once again. And I do want to put up this page as well. We do have a Gmail, uslacteam@gmail.com. Any general questions can go directly to that inbox. It's monitored by the committee here. So yeah, go ahead. If you have any questions whatsoever, you're reading the rules and regulations late at night and you're like, oh, I have a question about the phrasing here, let us know. And we'll answer you as quickly as possible. We listed the machines and equipment earlier, but if you have other questions, please feel free to email us or the hosts. There is a great question from Elise. There is a Eventbrite for signing up to judge, to compete. I should have added that to the link tree. I'll add it to the link tree. And potentially one of our committee members can find that link, or I can as well. Actually, I'm gonna go back one page. I can find yeah, we will put it on the link tree. Check the link tree in 15 minutes. And we'll get it on there for you. Thanks. All righty, cool. Yeah. Any other questions before we wrap up here? All right. That'll do it for us. US Coffee Champs, championships.org. Qualification for regionals. For the qualifying competition, again, we go from prelim to qualifier to national. Qualifier, the top 4 from each preliminary get guaranteed entry to the qualifying competition, and all other the remaining 16 spots in the qualifying competition are open to open registration. And if all those spots get filled, then we move to a lottery system. Or sorry, not a lottery system, but a waitlist system afterwards. So that is that. We'll put out some information. Great question. Thanks, Calvin. And for our judges, we will share a unconscious bias video in terms of, before you come to competition, just being aware of bias in judging and making sure that we are coming into competitions with a clear mind and clear mind, open heart, ready to judge some latte art. So that one's straight off the dome. And we're going to end here. Thanks, everyone, for a great time. Appreciate you all so much. And we will see you throughout the season. Thank you.